Right, what have we got today? Bush, it's another headlamp review. This time it is the Nitecore NU33. I'm excited to have a look at this because if you remember, not so far back, I had a look at the Nitecore HC65 and it was the HC65 V2. I loved the V1. I used that all the time for going out at night, fishing, hiking, camping, things like that. The V2 was better. Some tiny little UI things I would have liked to have changed, but other than that, beautiful piece of kit, you know, really nice and waterproof. So with that in mind, and bear in mind it used to be a triple setup like this behind a TIR. This used to have done something similar, but it's much smaller, so it's a more compact sort of light. Basically, I mean, you've got tiny little lights like this, like the Nebo Micro, which are just for working around the home. I would say I wouldn't necessarily go for a hike in this. You could do it. And then you have the larger lights like the NU65, you know, and the SP40 here. Bigger lights using a 18650 cell. However, this I consider like a mid-range. So it's not too small and it's not too big. It's compact. You can stick it, you can stuff it in a backpack, go hiking or camping, and you're covered basically. And you know, bear in mind this will e-lock. So if you do pack it into a backpack or something like that, you don't have to do the usual trick. You know, on lights, some of the lights like this, if they haven't got e-lock out, you have to disengage the circuit like that, so it won't turn on, which is fine. But on something like this, you can't do this because the battery is internal and it's non-replaceable. So Nitecore NU33 with a maximum output, in other words its turbo setting 700 lumens, very impressive for its size. Triple output, so you have your main beam, you have a red light, and you have a high CRI. CRI just stands for colour rendering index, and we'll cover that. And it tells you there built-in 2000 milliamp hour lithium ion battery. So it's lithium ion, it charges pretty rapidly. There's some little bits and pieces. I'm not going to bore you too much with the box here. There's your ratings, that's your maximum, there's your claimed maximum distance. Yeah, you may get around that, and your candela and things like that. 1 meter drop rating, I'll cover that. Okay, so not much more else on the box unless you want to look at that. I've done this in 4K, so you can zoom in and have a look. I'll cover the what they term weatherproof, and you've got your power indicators, white light, red light, power button, mode button, blah 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 blah. Right, okay, no one's interested in that. Let's get on with things here. So I've put this back in the box, but obviously I have used this multiple times. I've got multiple videos out on this, some for channel members only, and I've got a thoughts video up already, so I have done a lot of testing. So if we take this out, what are you getting here? So Bush. So I put this back exactly how I got it when it arrived, and just be aware that Nitecore sent me this one. I had a word with them. They said, look, TrailTrek, we will send you this free of charge if you have a look at it. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And in that regard, they don't get to see this before it's released. They don't get to edit this or tell me what to say. There's no script here. This is a stream of thought. This is exactly what I think, and honest. All my reviews are honest. It's as simple as that. So just bear that in mind. Nitecore sent me this light. Okay, so let's take this out. So get rid of that, drop kick that, Bush, get that in the bin. So basically you get your little warranty card, which I can't bother to read. Quick guide, which, you know, I'm a man, so we never read instruction manuals. Bush will just muddle our way through. So what do you get here? So you get a type A to type C, because this is type C. Hooray, hooray, it's type C. None of this old-fashioned micro USB. It is here type C. So you can see there under the IP66 moniker. Now, interestingly, the flap is solid. Listen, the flap is plastic. Now compare that to a lot of other lights. So, for example, here's a one. Now, traditionally, ones with USB charging and flaps for the charging, they'll use like a rubber grommet like this, and then there's your charging solution behind there. So you'd put a micro USB in there. Now, this isn't the case with this. It's like a two-part component. So you have a plastic section which lifts and then rotates. Watch. So that lifts and then it rotates. Now this, what I'm calling like a plunger section, is actually, see that there? Look, that's soft. Watch. That is a brilliant idea. Watch. Dead easy. Look, one-handed. I can open that. Boom. And you tilt it out the way. Not many have that feature, and I like it. And it just tilts out the way instead of you've got to pull things, and the you know, the rubber goes after a time. It just tilts out the way. Perfect. And then this rubber goes right in deep. Watch. Boom. And it feels quite tight. So I like that feature. You can do it one-handed, boof, and plug it in, no problem. So excellent feature there. And we'll cover the charging, but just let's have a look at the light here itself. So there it is there. In fact, if I put that in properly, So there's your light. Now it may look all plastic, but it isn't. So this bit's plastic, okay, and then this bit onwards, listen, is actually aluminium or aluminum if you're American. So listen, so all of this shell is aluminium, and then this section is plastic, and it is tiltable. So obviously this, if this was on your head, you can tilt it 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got 4 different, and I mean that you wouldn't want it any lower than that, you know, unless you're trying to, you know, have a look at your private parts whilst you're having a wee or something. But look, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 detents there. Perfect. I've tried putting in different detents and jumping up and down outside. I couldn't get it to move. So it's a double hinge. It's not just one in the middle, a fat one. It's 2. I had no problems with that. Also, interestingly, I like this honeycomb design. It lowers the weight. I mean, the whole thing's something like 95 grams, which is great. Bear in mind, it's got quite a large battery and a high sort of output. That just helps. I didn't have any problems sweating. I purposely ran up a hill and then back down again, then back up again, then back down a flight of stairs. And I didn't get the usual where you start itching around this strap and going, God, I'm too hot, I'm too hot. I didn't get that with this. It's just a 2-pointer, so there and there. I mean, it does feed through. It's not a 3-pointer where you'd have one going over your head, and I'll show you that in a moment with some of the other ones. But this mechanism is great, very light. This was comfortable because it's plastic. You know, when this was, it's like smoothed off. If you look, can you see how it's like chamfered off there? It's like smoothed off. So I didn't have any problems scratching my head going, oh, that's itchy. This was fine, no problems with that. Brilliant. Okay, so click. Right, so like I say, a maximum of 700 lumens. It has 3 outputs, so you have your main, your red, and your high CRI. And I'll just quickly show you them. You've got to click to hold. So there's your main beam, and then you've got 3 modes. So you've got your low, medium, and high. So you just press it. If you want to turn off, just click and hold. So click and hold for on, click and hold for off. Dead simple on the big power button. If you want to lock it, you just press and hold both, and it'll flash. There, see that flash? Right, now it won't work, which is great. So if you press it, you just get a little flash. Watch. If I try and turn it on, so it's saying, oh, no, I'm locked. You're not doing it, which is fine. Great if you put this in a pack. You're not wasting the battery when it gets pushed against clothes or equipment and tries to run the battery down. So click and hold both again to unlock. There, bag on. Perfect. Okay. So your main mode, like I say, you just click and hold. So there's low. Now they are claiming, I think that is, well, they call it medium, high, and turbo on this. I don't know why they've done that, but low is 60 lumens. I could just hike by that, that's fine, and you get 38 hours on that. High, 200 lumens, you get 9 hours, and then they're calling it turbo, even though it isn't turbo because it doesn't really step down. I didn't get a step down anyway. That's turbo there, 700. You get 4 hours on that. 4 hours from 700 lumens. That's really good and very good for hiking. If you just do that maths in your head and think, right, I've got 4 hours at that, and you can work it all out. And if you become accustomed to these numbers, you know that you're not going to run out on a given task. I really like that. And then it just cycles back down again. So, you know, no problems with that. You also have your other modes. So if we turn this on, so it's on, there's your main mode. You can go to high CRI. Now there's 2 modes in the high CRI. So you have a low and a high. So if we go through them, so there's low and high, low and high. So the low, which is that one, is only 6 lumens, but it's very floody and it's a warmer tint. I'll go over the tints in a moment, but it's a higher CRI, so it's a better color rendering index, so better for close-up work, more pleasant to look at. So that's that one. So 6 lumens, I think you get 147 hours out of that. And then if you bump it up to the next one, 50 lumens, great. I was walking by that just. And it was something like 47 hours total run time on this cell if it's fully charged. And then you also have a red mode, so we'll go to that. There's your red mode. So you remember main beam, high CRI, and then red. And red, now disappointingly, I thought red would have a couple of modes. On something like the HC65, you have a red low and a red high, and then red flash and things like that. This is a really bright red. It's really, really bright. I mean, they're quoting 13 lumens. It feels like about 20 plus easy. But you get 50 hours out of this. It would have been nice to have seen a low red and a high red. And the reason for that is, even though that is red, which is less energetic to the eye, in other words, it's less likely to ruin night vision, I can see that happening. You know, if you're right up close and it's on something reflective like a map or something like that, and it's flashing right back in your face and you're up close. I think that's probably a little bit too much. I'm being nitpicky here, and I realise most people will say, oh, don't be silly. You know, brighter is better. Yes, I understand if you're doing the washing or hiking or anything like that. I understand. Okay, so that's just me though. Okay, and then modes in that one, you have a flash or constant. That's it. And then turn off. You also have, if I remember rightly, is it 2 presses? Yeah, 2 presses is your SOS mode. So you have an SOS where it'll go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In other words, Morse code in SOS. And then you have a beacon mode. So boom, put it in beacon mode. So you can see there's a momentary flash, watch there, and then nothing. Momentary flash, nothing. Momentary flash, nothing. Great for setting a marker or distress signals and things like that. Or setting up in camp and then people know where it is and things like that. So click and hold, turn off. So very impressive. You know, those are the run times. I was really impressed with the fact that the highest, in other words, what they term turbo, 700 lumens, 4 hours. Brilliant for the size of this, look. I mean, in regards to run times, you have this, which I'm really impressed with. Even on the more expensive lights, like the HC65, the only sort of indication of battery you have is if you disengage the circuit, like this, and then you keep an eye on the power button, watch. It's not going to do it now, is it? Hang on. So you need to disengage the circuit, and what, this is probably empty celled or something. So there, so see it flashes out. So it flashes out the battery in voltage. Now that's fine for a flashaholic. Some people would say, what does that actually mean? I don't understand. And I understand that. So for the mainstream market, they have this. So if you press the mode button, if I can find the mode button, watch, lights up. So what's that telling me there? So if 1 light is on, you have 25% battery, 2 is 50, 3 is 75. The last one means 100%, you have 100% battery. Dead fast, dead quick. You know, I really like that, you know, and it's not on all the time wasting battery. You just press it and it tells you. For the mass market, brilliant, dead simple. Okay, so like I say, 95 grams, very impressive on this. It's aluminium here and plastic. I think that's sensible. This keeps it all light and nice, and yet this gives you a little bit of extra protection. Although it only has a 1 meter drop rating, I would have liked to have seen at least 1.5. Bear in mind this is going to be on your head rather than held at waist height like a traditional flashlight, unless you've got it in that style. But I would have liked to have seen it a bit higher, especially for the price. But we'll discuss that later on. So in regards to charging, I shall show you. So I'll just get my charger. There it is. Right, we'll use this charger. So it's Type C. Now this is the one that came with it. I'll put it back in the box, obviously. I did test it, and I've tested a couple of other different cables I've got from Blitzwolf and Anker. So Type A, so you plug that in, and then you simply look out the way, boom, dead simple. And it's Type C, so it doesn't matter which way you put it in. So you put that in, and then it charges. Now, can you see? You get this charging animation, I'm going to call it. So you can see that it is, you know, well, it's over. It's just pipped past 75% there, so you can see it's it's about 75%ish, and it's heading upwards there. So you can see it's charging, and then they go solid blue when it's finished. Brilliant, dead nice. I like that. And it is a rapid charger, so about 5 volts at the minute. Even though it's getting towards full, it will charge. They're saying 2 amps. I never saw that. 1.7 was the highest I got, and at the moment 1.5. That's rapid for such a small item. They are claiming once this is completely empty, no more than an hour and a half, and it's full. That's about right. It's about right. So very impressed with the charging speeds. Nice and rapid, and it's not such a huge cell. It's 2000 milliamp hours, so it doesn't take long to charge up. So brilliant. So the question is, does it work whilst it's charging? It does. Watch. Massive feature that if you're camping and you need to plug it in on a low mode and get stuff done whilst it's charging, very nice feature. Also, if you've got a long enough cable, stick that in your back pocket, plug that in, you know, to get that out the way somehow on here, out the way if you can, use a right angle, and you can put that on your head, and you've got massive run time because you've got the run time of this and the internal battery. So that's a huge benefit. Now, does it work with power delivery? So power delivery is when you have a Type C to Type C. So let's have a look. So not every manufacturer implements this lazily. So let's have a look. So plug that in, and you will find it's charging and it works. Watch. There you go. See, working whilst it's charging. Just to prove that. There. it's gone way down there, unless it's getting full there. There, it's gone back up 1.3. So still rapid charging and power delivery. It will negotiate that depending on how you do it though, because there is a level of negotiation between this and the power bank. So it works on power delivery, works on Type-C, brilliant, 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 works whilst it's charging, excellent. I love this flap, I really like this. This is better than some of these. It's just dead easy, look, straight out, and it rotates out the way. And I love the way that this grommet thing goes all the way in like a plunger, and bang, solid. That is not coming out, brilliant. Excellent design on there. Okay, so like I've said, you've got the E-lock, which I've showed you, and you've got the power indicator. They are claiming this is constant current circuit. Now when they say constant current circuit, what they mean is the power is on all the time. It's not pulsed on and off to get a given output. And in that regards, I did a lot of testing. I didn't find any pulse width modulation. Pulse width modulation is when you have a system that is turning on and off. I'll show you a terrible, if I can get this to work. Now, can you see it there? See that flickering? Now, I can hardly see that with the human eye. I can, but on this, it's very sensitive to it, so it's picking that up. So if I put this at certain angles, there, look at that flicker, awful. That's the Nebo Micro. They have fixed that on newer models. I'll give them that, fair enough. But it's awful to look at. It's like a cheap, strip light or a cheap monitor with a low refresh rate. It's irritating. None of that on this. At all levels, I tested it. All beams, there isn't any. They're claiming IP66, in other words, weatherproof. So it's dust-proof, but now when they say waterproof, it is waterproof as long as you don't submerge it. So if you put it out in the rain, it will be fine. Light jets of water, it will be fine. However, if you submerge it, in other words, there's pressure from having it underwater, it won't survive that. So it's not an IPX7 or 8, but 6 is enough, I think, as long as you're not jumping in water. It's fine, bearing in mind it's not, it's not an IPX8 or something like this where you're paying a lot more money. It's a cheaper light. I understand that. Okay, so I'm really impressed with this. Let's before I go over the pros and cons. In fact, let's put this down, right? Bring in some figures. Okay, so here's some figures. So I did some testing. Now here are my figures. Now, if you look at the top there, I've got a couple of figures because remember there's a main beam and an auxiliary beam. So main beam. So I came up with a tint in Kelvin value of 5050. So 5050. So around sort of neutrally. Lovely, really nice, no problems with that. I think that was a good choice. It isn't the harsh white light that you normally get, so good there. However, if you look at the CRI, in other words, color rendering index, the color rendering index is a little low, 60%. I would have liked to have seen at least 70 on something like a CRI or what have you in regards to meta. So that's a shame. That's 10% lower than I would have expected. So I am going to mark them down on that because the lower you get, the more irritating it gets. 70 to 80 is fine, but once you start creeping down, it becomes a little bit irritating. On the lowest setting, I noticed a little bit of green as well on the main beam on the absolute lowest setting. Nothing killer, but you're buying a Nitecore and you're paying a little bit extra. You expect something a bit more than that. So I just want to point that out. In regards to the auxiliary beam, in other words, what they describe on the website as high CRI, it certainly is. It's much higher CRI, especially compared to the main one. So it is 87% I came up with, and with a tint of 4617, I think, which is more towards the warm light. 4500 is a beautiful level. So I loved that. It was a lovely, nice, warm tint. I enjoyed that, and the high CRI is definitely better. It's better on the eyes, it's more pleasant, and it's better if you're like a night photographer or something like that. But like I say, it certainly wasn't pushing the 90s, and in regards to the main beam, 60%, come on, Nitecore, I would like to have seen a little bit higher than that, but I'm being very picky. Most people in the mainstream market will see that and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Move on, TrailTrek, stop waffling. Okay, fair enough. So right, let's get rid of those figures there. Right, they're gone. And I should have mentioned as well, but I did earlier in the review, there's no flickering. I didn't see any. I couldn't see any to the human eye, and in my testing there certainly wasn't any. Right, so let's go over some pros and cons, and then I'll show you some other lights that I tested it against. So pros, very light, 95 grams, brilliant. This is great. You've got a reflective layer. It's very comfortable. It's soft. Look, it's hard to see on here, but it's very soft. It feels premium. It feels like brushed sort of inside of like sort of quality sort of outdoors stuff. It's very nice. It's not rough at all. I think they've done a good job. It's easy to alter as well. So when you put it on, you put your hands behind your head and you literally just put your hands there and there, and then you do this, you go, that gets tighter. It's as simple as that. Some of the other ones are a nuisance. You know, this is a great band because I like the holes in it, but you're mucking around, then you pull that, and then you yank that one, and then you pull that down. This is a much better implementation. Well done, Nitecore. Thank you, because especially when you're doing things one-handed or you're trying to light a fire or whatever, you just want to be able to put your hands back and go, boom, right, tight, done, and it stays tight. So I like that. So light and small, it's Type C, it's power delivery, it works whilst charging on Type A or Type C, works whilst charging. I really like that. TIR implementation, perfect for a headlamp, more floody, you're not really going for throw. I mean, you can get a bit because the beam on this is quite good. In fact, I'll show you that in a moment. You have those 3 modes. It's tiltable, no pulse width modulation. This is light and airy. I mean, in regards cons, I would have liked to have seen 2 red light modes because one's fine, but it's very bright. Maybe it's a lower, then a higher. And the main beam's lower CRI than I would have liked to have seen. And in regards price, initially, I think the price was possibly a little bit too high, like 50 bucks or something. 40 is about where it should be. I mean, I saw it for £35 in this country if you get it imported. That's about right. That's great. I don't mind paying a little bit extra from the cheap generic rubbish because this is better. Okay, so let's bring up some beam shots here. Okay, right. So I took out a load of other headlamps and tested against it. Now, before you say anything, yes, I realise some of these are much more powerful, but we're looking at the beam profile here. So starting at the beginning, Astrolux HL01, nice and bright. It's a bit of a heavy light, which I'll show you in a minute. It's almost like Thor's hammer. So what can we see there? Decent peripheral, so you can see the trees to the left, far left and far right. The foreground is perfect, and you've got a little bit of push in the middle. That's because it's using an orange peel reflector. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one now. You probably think, what on earth's going on there, TrailTrek? On all of these pictures, you may not be aware, but I'm going to tell you this now. On all of these pictures, I put a low-level red light on. The reason I did that was because I find sometimes it's harder to point out when you lose peripheral, whereas this is a good example. By doing that, it means that any that don't illuminate the periphery, in other words, the sides, you will see that in red. So all of these pictures, every single one of them had exactly the same amount of red light at the same time. So by doing that, it's just a little test I've been doing. You can see the red, you see especially on the far left, that is where the bryanite is failing to illuminate. I mean, you could say, well, you don't need the red light, you can just see it dark. But I like to do this because by doing this, you're seeing what's being missed, not just darkness. You can see there is actually something there, and I'm not cheating. So as you can see on the bryanite one, HL16, you can see there is a tree very far left there in red being missed by the brightlight. So that was there, it just wasn't being picked up. So you could argue, well, the middle's nice and bright. It is, but it's not getting the same throw as the Astrolux, is it? But to be fair, the Astrolux is about 1,000 lumens and the bryanite is 400, I think. In fact, it's 520 off the top of my head. Okay, so moving on to the convoy. I can't see any red light there. It's okay. The periphery isn't as good as the Astrolux, though, is it? Even though they use a similar setup, the tint on the H1 is warmer in comparison to the Astrolux, though. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So Nitecore NU33, that's what we're looking at here. So look at the periphery. I think the periphery is just as good as, if not, in fact, it's better than the Astrolux, which is outputting more lumens and it's bigger and heavier. And this is a TIR, the NU33, so it's doing an excellent job. The foreground, perfect. Right to the sides, perfect. And a nice punch in the middle there. See how that's forcing out onto those 3 trees there. Excellent, well done, Nitecore. Especially for such a small light. So Skill Hunt HO3 next to it, you get around 800 to 900 lumens. You see how on the very far left you're getting a little bit of redness there, and you're not getting that periphery, so it's not doing such a good job, is it? I would say that the Nitecore does a better job, even though it is obviously a smaller. I mean, you could say smaller, but it's a more compact unit. You're not having to pull batteries in and out and things like that. Sofirn SB40, highly underrated light. I think that does a great job. Interestingly, you have great periphery and then you have a great punch in the middle. But then you could argue right at the top, it's missing a little bit. Yeah, okay, maybe it is, especially when you compare it comparatively to the NU33. I would say still though is a good bargain flashlight. But if you don't want a big heavy thing like the SB40, then you would go for the Nitecore. And bear in mind, the Nitecore has Type C, power delivery and all those goodies, which I prefer. Nebo micro, you can see far left again, redness sneaking in there, can't you? Less periphery, but to be fair, that's outputting around 400 lumens, so you would expect that. No big punch in the middle. It's quite uniform, which is a good thing, especially for a headlamp, but it's not really meant for range, so it's, you know, lacking. Woburn H5 again, same output around 400 lumens in comparison to the micro. However, I think it's doing a slightly better job overall, even though, again, look, far left, red creeping in there, suggesting it is not so good on the periphery. Yes, the thing with the Woburn H5 is, in person, it's got like almost a 180-degree sort of swathe of light, so it has to take that 400 lumens and spread it out and share it between that. So although you can't see it in that photograph, further to the left and the right, it beat the Nebo massively. But it's, you know, a really good light. Nitecore HC65, I mean, it's blown everything away. It's 1750 lumens. It will blow them all away. It's more expensive. However, if you compare to the Nitecore NU33, I think that does a decent job. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. In fact, on that Nitecore, I put it on its highest, so that wasn't the full 1700. I thought it would be stupid to put it on that level and then say, look, isn't this much better? Well, that's like, you know, comparing a Ferrari to, you know, the neighbour's car. It's stupid. So that was just on its highest set in the HC65 V2. But again, very similar profile. And if anything, the NU33 maybe is a little bit brighter, but the CRI is probably not as good. Okay, so we've waffled enough on them. Let's get that out of the way there. So, right. Okay, that's gone. Right, so back to the light we're supposed to be talking about. So all in all, I'm very impressed. However, there are things I'm not impressed with. For example, the main beam needs to be a higher CRI. Price needs to come down a little bit, but I can see it is starting to come down. So can I really knock points off of that? No, because I can, and other people can still get it for the cheap price. So I'll forgo them there. And maybe in regards to the high and low modes, I would have liked to have seen 2 red light modes, but okay, maybe I'm being picky there because mainstream market don't care, but it's got that nice battery indicator on, which isn't like a flashaholics indicator where it flashes out, then you've got to think, right, that's voltage, so how much is that in a percentage? And we like that, but you know, mainstream probably don't. So some other lights that I compared it to, I'll quickly go through them. This is the Nebo. Much smaller, look, there it is, much smaller, but awful pulse width modulation, and the UI is a nuisance. Watch, so you turn it on, if I can get it to turn on, right, so there it is, flickering away there, you know, like a bloody candle. So it's going there, and then you want to turn it off, so you think, right, I'll just press the button, all right, press it again, and again, right, now it's off. Nightmare. You've got to go through all the modes just to turn the damn thing off, and to get turbo you've got to click and hold, and then the step down on it, rapid, massive rapid. This isn't stepping down even on its highest setting, so bit of a missed opportunity, but it is very small. It's very small, so what do you expect? The detail on it is okay, not as nice as the Nitecore though, so I would definitely still get the Nitecore. Boom, but it's cheaper. Also, I tested it against this, which is again around 400-ish lumens. Interesting design. This is the Woburn H5 watch. You can rotate it like that. I'm not sure why you'd need to do that, because you're going to get a similar effect, but you can do that. And then you can also rotate it like this. Lots of little detents. And you can take this out and use it as a right angle, like that. So pretty interesting. The band was good, not quite as good as the Nitecore, I'll agree. The inside is brushed though and soft, just like this, so yes, they've made the extra effort. Very light, pretty cheap, and just very wide beam. Watch, if I turn this on and then let it go up, right, look at the width. Although this is pretty good, right, look at the width of that. Can you see it? For me, that is brilliant. Very good on a headlamp. Look at the width on that. It's not 180 degrees, but it's pretty close. That's what you want. You need periphery. When I'm hiking, that is a key feature. Although, to be fair, watch. This is pretty good as well, look. If I turn it up. See? See it there? Coming off, and here coming off. It's still pretty good. So it does the same trick as that. Look, it's very wide. I mean, this is harder to see because it's more diffuse. You haven't got that hard cut-off point. You could argue this is better, but I'm still very impressed with that design. Okay, so there's just another option, another smaller option, 520 lumens. As I showed you on the images though, it's more center focused, which isn't ideal for a headlamp. Although to be fair, this is a right angle. You can adjust it up and down. It's okay, but harsh white light and tint shift around the main beam center there, which isn't particularly pleasant. Very, very, very noticeable there. You see that sort of orange corona around there. But it is a TIR. It does a decent job. It's an okay light. Just these are probably better as a headlamp. This is probably better as an EDC torch. So there's another review options. If you had the money, you could bang. If you thought, well, look, TrailTrek says he's not so keen on the CRI, blah blah blah, and not enough red light modes. Go for this. I love this. I love the V1 and I love this. I give this something like a 9 out of 10. Very, very impressive. It's a 3-pointer, so it goes over the top of the skull as well as round the sides. Very secure, works beautifully. The only thing that I would like to see better is the battery flash out. I would have preferred to have seen something like this, where you've got the battery level, just have some lights or something in here. But other than that, they're very similar look, output-wise. But obviously in total output, in other words lumens, not the same. This is IPX8, so much you could go jump in water with that, no problem. You couldn't with this. But this has a removable battery, but you can undo this and charge it type C. They're both type C. So basically what I'm saying is, if you want to save some money, get the NU33. If you want to go Gucci and go for the good stuff, get that if you can push your budget, especially if you get it on sale. I think it's very, very worth it. Boom. So there's another option. 1700 lumens. Do you really need that? Probably not. A lot more involved and more lumens and more modes. Okay, I also tested against the SP40. Very, very cheap from Sofern. It's a 3-pointer. You can see I've used this extensively. The anodization is coming off. Unfortunately, the flap's okay, and it's a micro USB, so it's starting to show its age. This is Type C and power delivery, much better, although this is still a good budget light. It has a nice wide bowl with a tilted system here, so you get a nice wide beam, even though it's orange peel. It's okay, isn't it? It's not bad. I mean, I'd have to turn it up a bit there. So you've got this main beam here, and then can you see this line here? If I do that there, can you see it now? So you do get some periphery here, but then you get this main push. Very nice for an orange peel. Good at mid-range, but whereas these are better close-up. I tested against the HO3, which is the night skill hunt. Still after another version of this, but the company never sent me. And much better inside than this, actually. It's very brushed inside, very soft. I was very impressed with this, look. Really comfortable to wear this. Nice, light, slim. And look at the heatsink on that. Brilliant. Very fine UI. You've got sub modes in each mode, so probably more complicated than a lot of people would want, but this micro lens TIR does an exceptional job. Nice, warm, floody, diffuse light. So there's just another option for you. I also tested the H1 by Convoy. It's okay, it's got a nice tint, but nothing major. It is a 3-pointer, but it's a generic sort of band, and it's okay. It does a nice job, it's decent, but it is an orange peel reflector. Not as wide as the SP40 or as good. Also tested it against Thor's hammer here, or, it looks like a meat tenderizer, knock someone out or something if they come into your house. Nice auxiliary lights, just too big and heavy in my opinion. HL01 by Astrolux, although very bright. I love this thumb recess. I think that's really comfortable. I like that. Turn it on, double click, boom, straight to turbo. Nice UI on this. They did a good job on that, but just too damn heavy. I mean, if you want to knock nails in, brilliant. But if you're not a carpenter, probably don't need that. Okay, so I've waffled enough. Right, marks out of 10. Right, let's think about this. Right, it's light, small, Type C, power delivery, works whilst charging. A good, decent TIR, bit of push when you need it, 700 lumens, long run time, decent lithium ion battery. You've got your 3 modes, it's tiltable, no pulse width modulation, light, comfortable. It's a decent name that I trust. I like this works one-handed, boom, and I trust it. Look, you've got like this insert that goes right in, good. I mean, not a lot to complain about really, is there? Yes, you could say, well, I wish it was IPX8. Okay, I'm a purist like that. I'll give them a tiny little bit off for that. But it's understandable. The 60% CRI on the main beam is 10%-ish lower than I would have liked. So again, I'll knock a little bit off for that. I think that's only fair. And price, but again, I can't really complain about the price because like I say, I can go and buy this now for about 35 quid via Ali or Banggood or wherever. So price shouldn't really be an issue. Just make sure you get it from a reputable seller. You're not getting some horrible knockoff, but I shouldn't really knock price off for that. So marks out of 10 for what it does. And I wish it was a higher CRI in the main beam, but Can I complain about that when you've got a CRI specific output? Probably not. And I would like to have seen 2 modes on the red light, but again, I'm being picky because I like to see a little bit of a lower one and then a higher one. I'm being very picky, I understand that. With that in mind, I'm going to give this a healthy 8. I have to, because the things I'm marking it down for, the mainstream don't care about, and even some of the people watching this will be thinking, TrailTrek, what on earth are you going on about? I get that. But then the purists like me will say, yes, I agree with him, yeah, it needs to be higher CRI. And that red light is very, it's very bright. And yes, so us flashaholics who sit around with pontificating over these things, we care about these things, and I want to point them out because I've got to be honest. So I'm going to give this gets an 8 as far as I'm concerned. As long as you're not paying full whack, it gets an 8. I mean, if you did have more money though, I would recommend going for this. I use this all the time. Although to be fair, I also use the SP40. I'm not discounting this. I've actually got one of these in the car. I give a couple of these away as gifts. I sometimes recommend them to people, but if they want to spend more money, I say just get the Nitecore or something like that. So, okay, this gets an 8. I wish the CRI was a little bit higher in the main beam, and I would have liked to have seen 2 modes on the red light, and I would have liked to have seen IPX8. But for what its intended purpose is, it's rainproof, basically, which is all you're going to come up against unless you go diving into, monsoon weather or something like that. So well done, 8. I think it deserves that. Right, enough of me waffling. Let's get outside. I've got loads of footage, loads of side-by-side videos and things to have a look at, so we'll go and have a look at that. But well done, Nitecore, another decent product. I'll keep testing this just in case it falls to bits or anything, but it feels rock solid. I'm very impressed with the workmanship here. There's no squeaks or creaks or what rattles or anything like that. Brilliant. And I trust that this aluminum's going to hold up. Right, enough. Right, I'm off. Goodbye.